Hey everybody, welcome back to part 2 of Double Trouble Wednesday. I hope you're all doing well. We just finished earlier on part 2 of last week's show, Fountains of Youth. Very interesting to see what's in the celebrity products and stuff like that. So if you haven't already caught that, please do. We're going to be talking about castles of power, Boldt Castle, Astor, hotels, and Quill and Dagger. And yeah, so we look forward to that. We hope that for the moment our technical issues have been sorted, but let's wait and see. Madame,
Hello, hello. I think they have been solved, so it had to be that one setting.
I'm
So,
so happy that we
yay.
have it sorted. Go power!
It was like the echo was just killing me.
Yeah, and it's frustrating when you don't even know. I mean, I got to tell you, when I got this laptop a few months ago, I accidentally pressed a button on the keyboard that, like this one.
hmm
Oh no, that was the camera off. So, but it was my other camera. And I didn't know I was pressing it. So I sat through an entire day of meetings.
without without showing your face, but you didn't know you weren't showing your face.
And then accidentally I pressed it on again. I went, oh, okay. I'm not very tech savvy, but I'm learning. I must say, I'm learning.
Me as
Huh.
well. Like it's just humorous at times, the things that happen. You're like, "What is going on?" And you're checking out everything, and the more you try to fix it, the worse it gets, and you're like, "No, that's not what I wanted to do." It just creates more problems.
Exactly. Anyway, yeah, we're looking forward to today's show.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if there's anything you want to just wrap up or start off with. Tell us what you're going to be doing, and then maybe open for us in prayer.
Yeah, I've got exciting decodes coming up. If you weren't here in the first show and you missed it, I've got Thursday and Friday, the university's decode and the island extravaganza decode. We're really, at that next layer. We started off learning about the system's hidden knowledge in the city sigils. We got into how they communicated the quadrant level in the coat of arms. Now we're taking that deeper dive. What else do they use to communicate to each other through? Do they use those secret communications at the universities, the libraries, certain islands? What is it? Let's look at it. We're going to learn how to decode it. So if I encourage you, go to my website, thekingdomlivingwithjessie.com. Sign up for that. These are really that next layer. If you're wanting to learn, it's a good thing to hop into. And you really want to understand that next layer, because where do we go next from here? We're going to start to get into these castles of power, their strongholds, the places where, they're going to have secret access. They're going to have certain altars set up. They're going to, have specific things that are going on underground. And we want to be able to know, what is their power structure, because once we know, we really can, break that stronghold, that power structure, and, you know, get control of that in our area. So, that's why it's important to understand. And you can sign up again for those decodes on my website, thekingdomlivingwithjessie.com. So let's go ahead and pray, and then we are going to start getting into these castles of power. And I'm really excited about these for us to understand all this. So, Heavenly Father, we thank you. Thank you for even just by not even knowing what we're doing, Lord. Thank you for helping us to fix the technology issue we've had during the past couple shows here. Thank you for giving that insight and just leading us to the right buttons to click and letting it work. We ask that you would bless our technology, our airwaves, our Wi Fi, and our equipment today for ourselves and all of our viewers. as we have little things that pop up in life that just aren't right, we ask for your divine guidance and leading us to be able to figure those things out so that we are presenting with the best quality, in the best appearance and form that we can. We ask for this in your powerful name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen to that. Thank you, Jessie. Definitely. How funny. Anyway, definitely looking forward to the castles. Yeah. Should we
All
get
right.
right into it?
Yeah, let's go ahead and show the first picture here. So, as we begin to look at castles of power, it's important to understand the basic structures operating behind the system, that they are going to be connected to energy ley lines. Those energy ley lines are defined by quadrants. You're going to have quadrants both internationally as well as in the United States. And, what we think of as directional is not always the face front picture that we're going to get in the system. Um, so, as we look at these castles of power, they are centered in the north, the south, the east, and the west, internationally, as well as within the United States. So today we're going to get into Boldt Castle, which is set at the farthest, most northern point within the United States, near the Thousand Islands region in the upper New York areas. And it's located at 45.3 degrees north. This castle was built in the early 1900s by a millionaire who was also a hotel magnate. I like to show the aerial views just so you guys can get a feel for it. What we see here, notice how Boldt Castle is built off the waterways. It sits on an island, and you get a lot of interesting dynamic structures there. When you do the aerial views for these buildings, you really kind of can get a view for how the system is going to use the castle. Some of the things that we notice are like at the bottom right there. Notice how there's another castle tower that's kind of extended out there. And notice going into that how you have a direct access from the water to certain windows, certain entrances. That's not by accident. We also see that there's a gate of ball, uh, right? Almost not quite in the middle, but at the bottom middle. Notice how we see that gate. And look at the ley line, how that is directly lined up with one of the towers for that back part of the castle. That's important because one of the things is that many of these castles are used where the host or prominent person connected to the castle becomes the host for demonic spirits during certain meetings or ritual ceremonies and events. And they would use common layouts like this, where literally you're going to have those water or Leviathan spirits come in through a gate, and then you would have the practitioner who would be standing in front of a window or a doorway. They would draw zodiac symbols or other occultic symbols, maybe like a pentacle, and they'll draw those on the windows or in the window. It could be on a mirror in front of the window. And then through that spirit comes up through the water, kind of follows that line of energy and would enter the host. And they would go through all sorts of ritual bathing and everything to receive these spirits. So when you see like ley line structures like that, look, see where it lines up with the castle itself? Are there windows that are in direct connection, direct ley line access to um, those entrance points? And, then it kind of gives you ideas on what you're looking for. Is there an occult practitioner in connection with that building that, was being used as a host for the demonic spirits? Let's go ahead to the next one. Also, when we see things like the islands, um, it was common for the system to build further things underground, like the castles, the buildings, the layout up top really was telling you that there is more, like underground. Like, notice from this view how all of a sudden we see there's another castle tower there, almost sitting right in front of the main castle. And you have another one that's down in the water there. But those main single towers, often they would say that they're connected to water or a well, right? Well, look at how close it is sitting on the water. Why do they need a well that when they've got, such access straight up all around them, right? Usually that also indicated at the higher levels that there was something below ground. Many times those type of tower wells are connected to specific creatures or things that they kept underneath. Um, what were they keeping underneath? Notice that there's also a fountain in front of the face front of the castle. That's important because that often represented contracts with Leviathan and Astaroth that were hidden contracts. So we see a series of, layered castles, multiple entrances into this area. Could there be an underground military base under there? You had many of your ancient architecture builders that knew how to build below ground. And then the above ground would give indications that there was something below ground. And they would have, purposely place castles or mansions above ground and put guardians on the lands or territories where there would be access to underground. So, it's not that he just randomly wanted to build a castle on this secluded island. Usually it's much more purposeful and it goes with their Nazism. So let's go ahead to the next one. I want to show just a little bit further an up close of some of the gardens and that fountain. And notice all of your kind of Greek-like type statues that you're seeing there. That goes back to certain things. That's common when you see the mansions of the elites' gardens to have kind of that Greek type feel, to see a lot of what looks like priestesses or women in the gardens. You'd get a lot of your grand high priests that would do that with their gardens, and they're going to be connected to some of your upper orders like the Odd Fellows or your Knights of Pythias. Like, those are going to be the most common that have that type of structure. You can get other groups as well, your Golden Dawn, your Priestesses of Delphi. All of them are going to kind of use that same symbology in their gardens. Let's go ahead to the next one. So Boldt, George Boldt, was an interesting character. He was known as a millionaire hotel magnate who came out of nothing. Like, he was very poor, came into our country, and all of a sudden he's, a millionaire, a self-made millionaire during the Gilded Age. And this really was when you started to see a lot of your older hotels being raised up, and you'd have individuals that would be catering to the wealthy, the rich worldwide, and they were kind of known for creating a certain type and feel of hospitality with these hotels, where it was really a home away from home, but very much run like your castles, where everything was afforded. You know, these elite were basically catered to and treated like kings and queens as they traveled. And he was the builder of the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. The construction was famously halted as his wife died tragically. And so he began building this hotel, and then it was halted and kind of just left for a period of time vacant for many years. Why? Was this just a story? Was it really because of his grief, or was it because under the Waldorf Astoria Hotel they were building things underground, certain access points? I think that there's much more, and I do believe that there's access points under these, which is why, the elite are so invested. Why are they drawn to certain areas? It's because what's afforded to them. What did they gain access to from this castle or from the Waldorf Astoria Hotel? Let's go to the next one. So here's some images of the Waldorf and the Astoria hotels. Notice some specific things. You get a lot of the pinnacles, a lot of what we know as kind of your unique mix of, I would say, mix of kind of your Greek temple and Victorian type structures. You get the pinnacles, you get the colonnades, you get the specific like arched doorways and windows at the lower layers, and then you get some of the same structures like with the roofing that we see in some of the elite mansions like Biltmore, where you have these multi-tiered attics, a lot of room, a lot of space. And notice even how, like on the Astoria, up towards the top, like as you follow, like on the left-hand side of the Astoria and the right-hand side, notice how you can very clearly see the ball and the Ashtaroth poles. And it goes up where you even have that same imagery of the sun and the moon in the unique toppers that they put on top of those structures. Then you see kind of that middle colonnade, which very much looked like a temple, older Temple of Solomon in its face front structure. Also, you get kind of the Egyptian god tombs that had that same kind of look. But right below it, you see 3 archways with capstones. Those were very common when they were marking a northern wall. So what you would have is both on the front of this building and the back side of this building, you would have identified 4 northern walls. And so along the west of each of those, you're going to have altars underground. So, they would build these spaces with multiple altars, places that they could worship. Now, in the Waldorf, it's a little different. Notice how they've just got like one main arch at the kind of on the side of the buildings. And so you see a different structure. We don't see those northern walls marked on this one, except for right in the middle. You see those 3 archways identifying a northern wall. But then notice how that bottom base of the Waldorf, how you've got 3 arched doorways in that, but they're more spread out, telling you again that there's um, that face front is very much marking a northern wall. So those are different ways that it could be displayed. And, kind of they're communicating that hidden language that there's something there. Things that, they'll pick up on, they'll know, and they'll understand. Now, you also get some of the hidden, like going back to the Astoria, the above the ball and the Astaroth poles on the face front. Notice how you kind of have that Indian, like from India, or that kind of like your chic mosque look at the top with those balls. Like they're done very much to look like that India or Islamic influence. Well, what does that mean? Well, it was common for them to actually build in their mansions or castles, uh, for one, hookah rooms, places where they could come and engage, and they literally would have it would look like a lamp hanging from the wall, or sometimes they would have like this big lamp that would be connected to the chimneys. And they would have smoking rooms where literally the opium was in the air. And they would all gather in these rooms and get high together on that smoke. They also would have connections at times to those areas. You would get the connection to underground shipping lines where they're going to have that connection to some of those things and be bringing it in. So, was the Astoria in those upper areas, were those places where they had, for lack of a better term, the hookah, opium, and heroin rooms where they're, engaging in getting high together. It's very possible that, they had that then. Let's go ahead to the next picture. So George Boldt was a Prussian immigrant, and he made himself famous by running the Waldorf and the Astoria hotels. But he also had another one that was in Philadelphia, PA, which was known as the Bellevue-Stratford. And we see the same kind of design structure as you get with the Waldorf and the Astoria hotels in the Bellevue Stratford. That kind of that blend of the Victorian. This hotel versus the others were more rectangular. This one is very much more that perfectly squared building. And these are unique because you'll see it a lot, especially with certain Masonic structures. You would see it in the old jailhouses where you'd get that perfectly squared look. And it would be communicating very specific things underground. Usually, when you see those perfectly squared buildings, you have underground holding cages or jail cells of some sort. This was the way that they would identify them, which is why later you would see your jails being built in that perfect square. It was so that they would know that that place or area had underground holding cells. Sometimes these buildings could be the same places where they would have their altars. Most likely, if they had altars, they're going to be up in those upper layers where we see, kind of like the domed, you get a unique kind of, I think of it more as like your Egyptian type topper there, that kind of also looks like the face front of your Solomonic temple. If there were altars, they're usually up there in the high places on these type of structure buildings. Otherwise, these would be used as the holding grounds, and they would be holding for rituals that would be in another space or area. So let's go to another one. another picture. So let's look into some other connections because there's some interesting things as we get into George Boldt. Was he just an innocent man who immigrated and came into our country, built a name for himself through these hotels catering to the elite, or are there other connections for him? Um, when we look into him, we find that not only are there high ritual connections to the areas where he built his hotels, but he also served as a trustee for Cornell University. And this is one of the older symbols for Cornell University. And we're going to go ahead and look at it and decode what the symbology is meaning in it. But I also want to encourage you, if you haven't registered yet for my university's decodes coming up Thursday evening, get into it because there's a lot of symbology as we look at the older universities that the elite would use to communicate to each other special teachings, things that they were going to be engaging at the university level. You have kind of that a layer of your brotherhood that sits right between the councils and the grand high priests and priestesses. That layer being your Priory of Zion. Many of them would be connected to the universities, the libraries, the Smithsonian, the different art institutes, and their job would be to oversee antiquities, artifacts, different occultic books. They're going to be in charge of the movement of things, sometimes between, black markets that are underground. And so we see some of the symbology coming out in this older Cornell University coat of arms. First, we see the bear that's chained. Now, this is a specific ritual as well as gets into your underground markets where the elite would, have creatures that they're going to buy, sell, and trade on. But one of your older creatures going back being connected to bears. You have a select order of this system that was known for being handlers of these bears. And they were known as years. Your years gets into, some of the older myths where could there be sorcerers, sorceresses, people that, kind of like your werewolves, your vampires, that had changeling spirits where they could change from human to bear. You get a whole myth around that. We even see that connected to some of our Grimm fairy tales, like Snow White and Rose Red, where you have the prince. It actually has an enchantment and a spell on him that makes him a bear, and it's only broken with true love. So, this is nothing new. Like, this goes back into ancient times and seasons. You have those that were connected to certain forms of witchcraft where, high-level sorceresses would be connected to your years, and those would be called the Urisae. So, some very unique things with that. Your order of the bears, is the ones that would be kind of seen as your hunters, your people that would capture these bears that were also human and could, would be able to keep them, trap them in their bear form. So, some interesting things with types of witchcraft. So whether, those at Cornell University, because the bear is not seen free, like if you see the bear free, it usually means that they are those that can change into bears or training in that form of sorcery. But when we see the bear chained, it's the other direction where it's those who can trap and capture the years and have them under control and maybe they even buy, sell, and trade those that they capture. So is Cornell University, on top of that? I see you've got a comment there before I go on. Go ahead and comment, Shanti.
When firstly, I have to say, interesting with this AI movie clip type things that we spoke about. I'm researching right now. Lots of that bear and tiger people type thing, and bear ears and bear tails and stuff like that, which is interesting, but that's kind of a separate topic. What really comes to mind is the story of Teddy Roosevelt, who was famously hunting a bear and then decided to have mercy, thank God, and not kill the bear. So I'm very interested to know what your thoughts are on that, and obviously the bear societies and stuff like that. Would that be indicative of?
I think very much so. And you had him even being identified as a teddy bear. So, that's why they called him Teddy. But I think it's very highly interconnected. And is there a direct connection with Roosevelt to some of these things? Who else, was connected to Cornell University? I think there is, and we know that they engage in hunting parties. Do they at times collect unique creatures or humans that, have this ability? You'd get a connection to the protectors with those who are bears. Usually they are situated at very specific places. They are seen, like a lot of their characteristics are seen in the different fairy tales. Like you see Goldilocks and the three bears, and the bears are kind of seen as those that protect the woods, the forests. They're going to have specific houses in certain places, and watching over those houses. So they were kind of seen as watchers over certain sacred or religious areas or places and connected to nature, or in connection to nature. So you get certain individuals that very much wanted to hunt what we would consider mythical or fairy tale creatures. But you get long lines of those generationally that are bears or wolves or vampires. These are ancient lines that that are not as common in our day, but we still do have them, and we can know exactly where they are and where those who are hunting them are. So let's keep going. So we also see a shield, which what's interesting is, go back, when we see that elevated shield and we see stuff around it, that is meant to give you that island effect. It's meant to tell the elite that there is stuff underneath. What's underneath? They're going to have a theater underneath there. That theater was used, as a showroom. They would bring these creatures in there and auction. They also would use it to display, or sometimes for special shows, to torture, to torment the creatures that they're bringing through. So that's what's there under Cornell. And who has access to that? The top of the shield tells us. On the right side, you get the sun with the mountain, that representing your golden dawn, your order of Odin. On the right of the shield, you get your Sons of Liberty symbology, which when you follow that, wherever you have your Sons of Liberty, which is sovereign military group, you're also going to have connected to them your Order of the Red Men. Now, when you look at your symbology for your Order of your Red Men, you're going to see in some of that the bear symbology. And I would propose not necessarily that your Order of the Red Men are those connected to bears, or, being those that change and carry that changeling spirit, but rather that your Order of the Red Men and your Sons of Liberty were known for hunting these creatures. So trained specifically to know about the years and to be able to track, find, and capture them. Current day, we had some interesting things with the bears. Yellowstone has been having all sorts of wild creature stuff going on. First, it was reported they had all these wolves out of nowhere. Then the wolves mysteriously were evacuating the park in hordes, like not even packs, like hordes. They were all picking up and leaving together. What in the world? Then we saw all the bears, were revolting and leaving the area. What was that about? These are not typical characteristics of natural animals. It says very much to me that there's something going on with protectors and those who have these generational lines of shape-shifting, and they're making a statement there about things going on at Yellowstone. Yellowstone would be a place where the protectors could gather. It would be a place where they were allowed to engage in the hunts that would be going on. So when the protectors revolt, it tells me there's something very serious going on, because nothing like this has ever really happened in history where you have big revolts like that. So there's definitely been things going on. The last thing we see here with Cornell is the books. We know when we see the open books like that speaks to libraries. This special library, notice how there's the three spikes coming out on each end. That speaks to the Solomonic magic books that they have in special occultic books, and their access to specific rooms where those books are going to be kept. So there are some very specific things there at Cornell University. So, what is a trustee? Boldt was a trustee, meaning that I believe he had special access. I also believe, with his connection with the hotels, that he had very specific access with Cornell to be able to get these elite into these special underground events, as well as access to certain occultic books. I think that's very much why this is, his castle, his hotels are considered castles of power, because, they were getting special access to things through Boldt's connection. Now, Boldt is not known to be connected to any Masonic orders or any occultic things. Like they kept him, pretty clean. And I think that was because, he was meant to kind of connect people. They didn't want any of it going back to any of their specific groups. So they just didn't advertise what he was connected to. But when you look further into him, he had a son, and George Boldt Jr. also was directly connected to Cornell University, and was also known to be connected to the secret society Quill and Pen. And this is an upper elite secret society, kind of like your Skull and Bones. Let's go ahead to the next one. And when you look at their symbology, this is one of their symbols. You see the shrunken head, you see the quill in it, you see also the sword going through it. Now, there's a few things with this. Notice the similarities in that with the Skull and Bones, where you see the skull, you see a dagger going through the skull, but you see a shift in direction with the quill and dagger. Where does that symbology go back to? When you go back looking into the Thule Society, as well as the Theosophical Society, that's where you're going to find the dagger in this form. What do we know about the Thule Society? They would build altars to Baal. You often would see members connected to churches, many times those churches being Lutheran. Um, the symbology on the outside of the churches, you would see kind of, I call it the half eye of Horus, where like the windows have kind of like that weird, uh, half eye of Horus look. And that's going to go back to your Lilith sigil. And so not only were they worshiping with altars of Baal, but you're going to find altars to Lilith, which, what does the name of Lilith in that form connect to? It connects to altars that are in the depths of what they're going to consider hell. So you also get the direct connection with shamanism and specific shamanism. Where does the shrinking head come from? That's a certain form of witchcraft. But you get those that also know how to do the head shrinking. And, is that some of the things in this group that they would get into? It's a form of like mummification, a very specific form. There's specific things that they learn and that are required in that form. And then they use the head very much, not always as a warning. Like that's how we see it in some of these Amazon, Aztec, different type of cultures, is that it would be placed on a spear. It would be a warning to people coming into that area. But are there other things it's used for in their witchcraft? Is there a connection to certain types of curses that would go along with it? Does it get into scrawling? Is that why they use the quill? Are these masters at forms of a unique form of necromancy blended with scrying, where they could use the heads of those that they killed. They could connect to the spirit and try to get secret communications from the dead. It is. And we see this quill and pen in other forms. Several of our presidents, actually, and it would surprise you as to which presidents, but when you go into the Capitol buildings, you will see pictures of the presidents or certain senators, certain politicians that will be displayed in the main dome area of each capital. Look at those pictures. You'll also see it in the presidential libraries where they'll post pictures of the presidents. And when you see the president in their picture with a pen in their hand, it usually goes back to the quill and pen, or the Quill and Dagger Society. Some of our presidents that were included in this, I'll just give you one for now, but L.B. Johnson was one who was in the Quill and Dagger Society. When you go to his library, you get a lot of unique pens displayed. Was he engaged, as well as his wife, in certain forms of scrying? In that, they can use black mirrors. You get practitioners like Laurie Cabot Kent that they would sit in front of a mirror, and it could be a regular mirror or a black mirror, and they would connect with a spirit through that mirror, and then they would actually write. The unique thing in that is that you get a twofold image. They have what in the physical, and then you have the image displayed in the mirror. And often, as they're just scrying, there would be secret messages that would appear in the mirror, and that would be part of the connection. Go ahead to the next one. So here's some of their other symbology. You'll see the quill and the scroll. Now, you'll get different layers of this society or order at their base level. You'll get certain images. You'll see it connecting to other things. So some of it will go back to ancient books where they'll actually scrawl from an ancient text or scroll and use that like a mirror in itself. They'll pull out through their scrawling the hidden Kabbalah things being communicated. You'll see that scroll a lot of times in connection to the historians, which historian is a very specific position in the system. We've talked about how Colonel Michael Aquino declared himself a historian, and that they write down things that happen within these circle groups and preserve them. You have a training of the historians. You'll see the historian badge in your Boy Scouts. So they're training up into this order, learning to be historians, learning to document, to go into certain areas and to rewrite history. Where they take the things that happen and they, is it really what happened? Like, let's say massacres, right? We see all these things in history with Native American or the 13 colonies with the founding of those where there were supposed massacres. Is that really what happened? Or do you have the historians rewriting, not telling what the real Brotherhood story is? They're covering up what the circle groups and what the Brotherhood were doing in those areas and presenting it another way, another story publicly. Same thing with Colonel Michael Aquino. We've talked about the games, where we talked about, the training programs, the projects, what they were doing to children with the US military. Yet then you see these sci-fi parodies that he's connected to. You see a connection to Hollywood, to movies, to Star Wars, Indiana Jones. A rewriting of things that happened and a way that they can profit off of it. So, you'll see this symbol in connection to your courthouses, your libraries. You'll see that scroll. When you see it, it means there's a historian. You can also get in connection with the historians and oracle. So when you see this on a courthouse, it means that there is an oracle or a historian directly connected to that courthouse that can be accessed. So, those who are understanding that symbol, they know what to ask for. They know how to ask for it and how to get access to that historian or oracle. Go ahead to the next one. So here's another one of their symbols. Notice you have the single key in the middle. And what does the single key usually represent? Silence. But notice how at the bottom, that key has 2 access points. Now, at one layer, that tells them, when you have the 2 keys, that there's Kabbalah knowledge. So it's literally saying that this is so secretive, the access to the Kabbalah knowledge that you're getting, that, you're going to get it through that code of silence, literally. But it's much, much more, because that same symbology of the keys, like that, where it shows the bottoms like that, often was used as a map showing you what's below ground. That, like, it would show you the layout, and that, basically that you would enter through kind of a building on the top the access point, you're going to go through a long hallway, and then there's special chambers at the ends. You'll see this in some of your Jesuit Catholic churches with the two keys crossing over each other. Notice the end of the keys. They're telling you under that church that there's special chambers where things are going to be gleaned. Notice at the end of those special chambers, there's like that book, but it's in that V or Y shape, which goes back to the Thule Society, special altars that they have. Is there a connection between books that they have and access to certain altars? That could be. Notice also on the ends, you get kind of the head faces of the priestesses. It was common for them to mark certain territories with statues, certain access point, but that symbology is also very much recognized as the Sphinx. You get some of the ancient imagery with the Sphinx set as guardians over certain territories, tombs, avenues, whether that's a river, but that symbology of passing through something. And as long as the Sphinx eyes were turned away, you had freedom to pass. And they're telling you who has freedom to pass through those areas. The historians or certain warriors do. Your Thule Society can have the sword pointing up or pointing down. But if the Sphinx eyes turned towards you, that was a bad thing. It literally was a life or death situation. So this is some of the symbology that can go with that. It's considered, top secret for them, this hidden knowledge and, very much hidden Kabbalah knowledge. So your Quill Dagger Society is going to be connected to very specific knowledge in the system. Now, when we think of the Sphinx, that goes back to another order. When you get your Masonic women, your Eastern Star, there's different degrees that they're going to go through as well as they advance in their degrees. So they start off Eastern Star. Then as they advance, they can go into being your daughters of the Nile, your daughters of Job, your daughters of Sarah and Rebecca. Your daughters of Sarah and Rebecca are going to connect to your Order of the Blue Rose. You're going to have high-level matrons that are investing in specific breeder programs, breeding specific men for certain things. Look at the backgrounds, the colors, the imagery connected with your Order of the Quill and Dagger. For this upper layers of it, you get that blue effect. Does that connect to the Vatican? Does that connect to your, ancient aspects of the system, which was known as Babylon? Or does that also connect to these upper female breeding program groups where they're breeding elite men, your Order of the Blue Rose? Now, beyond that, then they can get into some of your upper priestess levels, which would include your Order of the Sphinx. We've talked about that a little bit, that in that they're also going to be Shriners. They'll be connected to the Shriners in those temples. And they also will be connected to some of your orders that directly connect to your court systems, your lawyers. And that's going to be, through the lines of the Masonic lines of your Order of the Polar Star. Then you're going to have your next in that succession will be your Order of the Seraphim, and then your Order of Mongolia. The Order of Mongolia and your Order of the Sphinx, one's the male, one's the female. They're going to often have the scarves with all the different stripes, with the different colors, like the rust orange, the kind of mustard yellow, the weird green, and the aqua blues and darker blues and your kind of weird red colors. We saw Nancy Pelosi wearing Order of Mongolia, Order of the Sphinx scarf. When the priestesses come out, they literally will have like it looks like a horn, but an Egyptian type headpiece that will look like horns coming down, and they'll have the stripes, and they literally will wear an amulet on their forehead. So, what does this tell you? It tells you that you're going to have Order of your Sphinx women that will kind of be in charge of some of those secret areas. So you've got to, they're going to be the ones that give you passage or not. That's what this basically is saying. So, what order of Sphinx women are connected to your University of Cornell? The courthouses, the libraries in connection to that. All of that's intertwined. I think that was our last one. Did we have one more, or was that it? I think that was it. Yeah, so I see in there a question, Order Mongolia, Order bad? Yes, correct. That's your higher level women in the system. They are not good.
It's absolutely fascinating when we, again, when you're decoding the sigils, and it makes such sense where they are, right? And who they're worshipping. It really is fascinating. And wow.
Yeah. Even when we think of the Victorian style of the hotels and things like that, notice how that upper part looked very much like a Shriner's hat.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that gets into special type of worship that your Shriners are going to engage in, which goes back to some of your other cultures like the Hindi, the Islamic. They're going to engage in what's called Sheikhism. So they'll raise somebody up as a sheik, and that person is who they're going to worship that person like a god. And you get that in your upper layers of the Shriners.
Wow. What I noticed actually in the previous, to say something, when we were looking at Kanye West's portfolio, right? And we looked at the people with the glasses on. What I noticed, a lot of them was completely covered in black or very much dressed in black. And that reminded me of the hijab. Now, I don't know if they're trying to emulate that or if that's part of the message they're trying to send through that, right? I don't know what if speaking about the whole Islamic thing as well. I mean, it just all seems to be completely interlinked. There's nothing that's separate, right?
It's that would be a whole great show, would be to get into the holy and the unholy jihad. You get your Knights Templars that are going to be going back to some of the ancient artifacts, and your upper layers of the Illuminati, they literally are known as the holy or the unholy jihad, and they'll say that name a little differently, but we should do a show on that.
Oh, we're making notes here, don't you worry.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I want to say thank you so much, Jess. Someone's saying you have an echo again, so I'm not sure why the echo is back. But then I'll leave you to say goodbye. So I'm gonna mute myself.
All right. Well, I encourage you guys again, catch the universities decode, different things that I've got coming out. I also have a very interesting show. I've got a special interview Thursday, which will be live, that is international with Italy. With their channel's the Eye on History channel. But we're going to get into the Chateau de Amoris, and we're going to get into Laurie Cabot Kent a little bit. So I encourage you guys to catch that as well. I think that's at 3 p.m. Eastern. And that also will connect to some of the castles of power in that discussion, and a little bit of the history of the Grand High Priest and priestesses and what they do and their connection to the system. So let's go ahead and pray. And I'm thinking as I'm talking, I'm excited. I've got the whole, thinking of all the topics that we could get into with the Holy Jihad. And so that's what's going through my mind. But let's go ahead and pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you again for this time. We ask that as we part today, that we would part in peace, that you would bless our ways, our going out and our going forth, that you would keep us, that you would watch over us until we meet again. And we thank you for such amazing viewers on this channel. We thank you for this family, this community, and for our lovely host, who truly is the hostess with the mostest. We ask that you would continue to bless everything that goes on with this channel and with our audience. In your name we pray. Amen.
You're so lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Definitely the guest with the best. And definitely the audience, for sure. I appreciate
yes,
you guys.
We've got the best audience on this platform.
Yeah. Even if they do sometimes argue in the chat.
Right. Sometimes they get a little ornery.
A little bit sassy.
True.
Anyway. Okay, Jess, wonderful. Thank you so much. We'll see you on Sunday for book club. So Patreons, members, you'll get your link about an hour or so before the show starts. That's 3 p.m. Central Africa time, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right?
Yeah, and we are going to get into more of the hidden Kabbalah knowledge with the Initiates of the Flame book.
Nice.
So that's going to be an amazing discussion.
So join us live on Sunday then. Become a Patreon or a member, and you get to hang out with us live. Very cool. We enjoy those times very much. Yeah. Okay, everybody, take good care of your beautiful selves. And I will see you. What's today? Yes, tomorrow I'll see you again.
Yes.
See you then. God bless you all. Bye-bye. Ta-dam. There we go. If this broke something open, if you recognized yourself in the testimony, if your body responded before your mind understood, the next step isn't more information. It's pattern work. Decode what your nervous system built to survive. Dismantle the story that keeps it running. Reorganize through the body and choose, actually choose, from the person you're becoming, not from the pattern that formed when you were too small to choose. That's Solutions. Link below. The body is the record. Let's listen.